and then of course that you can share those Power BI reports. You may want to know what are some things that you can do up there that you can't do in the desktop, and we'll go over a few of those things today. And right after that, we'll jump directly into a demo. What we'll do is create a workspace. We'll share workspace, share reports, share data sets, add favorites, show you how to export the PDF, PowerPoint, SharePoints and websites. Also show you how to refresh data, and then show you other workspace options. All right. Now it's pretty easy and straightforward when you see the Power BI service and where things are located and created. Microsoft makes it really simple and straightforward on how to do this. I'm just here to wet your feet and show you exactly what is available. All right. After that, we're going to have a introduction of a capacity overview by Steve, and then a couple of guidance on what are some of the next steps that you should do from a capacity standpoint. All right. Let's go and jump into the overview. Okay, so what is Power BI? So a lot of you already know what Power BI is, but Power BI is a business intelligence system that allows you to create reports and dashboards so that you can perform business analytics. You can create amazing data experiences. All right. You can look at great visualizations. You can also use various type of visualizations like you're using inside of Excel, but you can share that via report or dashboard. It allows you also to make decisions basically real time anywhere. And of course, it's scalable. So no matter how much information that you have, you can basically pull it into Power BI to display visualizations. Okay, so for the government, there's several sites that you can use to log in to Power BI. You usually just want to go to the office.com, use your credentials, sign in, and then of course click on the URL, and then it'll take you to the website, right? So for DoD, this is the link right here. Don't worry about this. I'll show you how to basically navigate to it a little later on, but this is the link right here, right? So there's a difference between Power BI Desktop and there's a difference between Power BI services. The desktop is where you start creating your Power BI reports, all right? You can use dozens of data sources. You can transform that data, all right? After you transform and shape that data, those modules create relationships, then you can create your reports. On the other hand, after you publish those reports, that goes directly to Power BI services or Power BI inside the cloud. Once it's in Power BI services, you can actually modify those reports, all right? You can create paginated reports, role level security management, manage gateways, as well as create dashboards from that. And both of Power BI services and Power BI desktop has ability to have security, of course, that's built in, bookmarks, Q&A, and things of that nature. The only difference is in Power BI services online, you're doing more of the sharing. That's where your workspace for collaborations is at. And of course, from administration standpoint, that's where you administer all of your reports as well as your workspaces. At any time, feel free to leave a message inside of the chat, and then Steve will ping me to let me know if there's any questions. So what is the process of working with Power BI, at least from a Power BI desktop standpoint? Because before you can actually create reports from the perspective of working with data within your environment, and I'm talking about Azure in the cloud, because you can actually create reports directly from Power BI service. But we're talking more about traditionally, right? You want to start with preparing that information. You want to see what type of data sources are available. That data source may be a Power BI file, Excel, Azure services, different types of databases such as SQL, on-premise databases if you're using a data gateway. And after that, you want to start working on exploring, seeing what's available, right? You want to look inside that data. you want to modify it, you want to import that data, and then of course, create a report. And once you create that report, and then all you have to do is save it, publish it, and now it's in Power BI services. We're going to go over that same process in the next couple of slides. So once you're in Power BI services, once you're in Power BI desktop, you click on Get Data. You choose any one of these dozens of data sources, everything from Excel to SharePoint to an Access database to SAP to Azure to SharePoint List, Exchange Online, GitHub, and even ODBC for those old developers like myself. All right. So once you get that data, you will basically transform that data, right? And because every data set is not normalized the way that you need to be. Maybe you want to add some fields, change some names, add a couple of calculated columns and measures. So with that being said, once you import it, you can click on query, and then you edit the query using this query editor. And then from there, you can basically create your calculations and anything that you need to be created, all right? And of course, like any other product, we'll have a ribbon. You got the left side pane with all your tables. Of course, your center pane with your data. That looks very similar to an Excel or a database table. And then, of course, your query setting pane. We're not going to go over importing and querying and editing data for this workshop. But we will do is view that data and then publish it inside of Power BI. That is definitely another course. So the Power BI desktop interface, of course, has a ribbon. Oh my, I just started something. Let me actually go back here. And this is not recorded right now. Oh, you already started. I appreciate that, Steve. Oh, thank you. All right. So the Power BI desktop has a ribbon at the top, right? This is where you will perform your common tasks. And then, of course, number 2 is your canvas where you'll put your report set. This is where you add your visualizations to the page. This is where you will work inside of the Power BI desktop to create your report, all right? And then, of course, number 3 is your pages, all right? Just like Excel, you have pages at the bottom. You can move them left and right and rename them, all right? And then number 4, you have your filters. Anytime you put a filter here, it can actually, when you publish it, you show that filter inside of Power BI services or Power BI inside the cloud, if you will. And then, of course, these are the visualizations that you can use right here. You can just drop and drag it on the canvas and then drop and drag fields, respective field directly to the visualizations or inside of the visualization spot right here. Once you do that, and then you'll create reports, right? And number 7 is your report page. This is the report page that is presently showing. And then you have a data page, which is very similar to the previous slide, where you see the data set itself looks like Excel. And then, of course, number 9 is relation button as well. And of course, number 10, after all is said and done, you will publish this report, and then it goes to Power BI services. I'll share this slide as well as the previous slide and a PDF. I'll email that out to everyone that's attending today so that you can have a reference of where things are at inside of Power BI desktop as well as Power BI services. From a Power BI services standpoint, once you publish it and then you see almost the same interface, but it does look a little different, such as there's no menu at the top, but you'll see your navigation on the left-hand side, your canvas area. All right, and this is exactly what everyone else will see when you publish it. Your Q&A box. You also will see your icons right here. And then you'll see your dashboard title right here. So you know the name of your dashboard that you created or your report that you created. Here, of course, is the Office 365 app launcher. And then, of course, this is the Power BI homepage button. and then additional icons to perform additional tasks that we'll see in a few minutes. All right, so let me see.
And
before
we
start
actually
the
just
demo,
we got a question here.
Okay.
Rich had asked, is there a way to edit queries in Power BI service, such as changing the data source connections?
Yeah, so the best way to do that is directly inside of Power BI Desktop. Although there are ways to do that if you're doing a direct connection inside of Azure to those data sets. That's outside the scope of this class, but I can send some information on that a little later. Do you have any words about that, Steve, or Jake?
Yeah, no, I think Jeffrey, you're spot on. There are ways of, for example, let's say that you wanted to point your report to a test environment. Maybe you have like a development, a test, and a production environment. There are ways that you can kind of create parameters inside your report, so it's easy to swap out which data source you're connecting to. I don't know if that's what you're getting to with the question, but there's a couple of different like ways that help facilitate how you can swap out the data source you're pointing to.
Very good question. Thanks, Steve. All right. So of course, this is Power BI Desktop right here. Just to get a quick demo, and we saw what each one of these components are. So I'm not going to go over that again. But to push this into Power BI services, you just want to click Publish. And of course, you should be logged in. And then these are the workspaces that are presently available, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the My Workspace. Of course, I can click on any other workspace, but just for the sake of argument, I'm going to click on My Workspace. So that's my personal workspace. These other ones are collaboration or team workspaces. And that could be on pretty much any level, whether it's department level, division level, or any other type of organization level, right? But everyone does get their own personal workspace. No collaboration is done on that workspace. There is ways to share reports, but there's no way to collaborate on that workspace. So I'm just going to put it on my workspace. I'm going to click select. I already published this report, so I'm just going to replace the data set, if you will, or that report. Takes a couple seconds. Success. I can click directly on the link right here. I'm not going to do that because my browser is set to Edge instead of Chrome. So how do you get to Power BI services? All right. Again, you can just go to office.com. You can log in with your credentials, and then you can click on Power BI services, all right? Or you can go to that URL that we saw in the presentation. I'm just going to click on Power BI. And then, of course, I'm in the GCC tenant. That's why you see Power BI gov.us. We also saw the DoD links and things of that nature. But again, all you do is go to office.com, log in with your credentials, click on Power BI, and then you should go to your respective link right here. We saw those workspaces that are available, right? We saw all the workspaces that are available. The one that I just uploaded was, I put that on my workspace. And the one I just uploaded was the Air Force. So we have a couple of things here. We have the report, and we also have that data set right here. So every time you publish a report, you will also publish the corresponding data set as well. We'll come back to this page in a few minutes. But for right now, I'm going to go to that report that I published. So as we can see here, we are now inside of Power BI services, and we are displaying this report so that pretty much anyone can see this, basically whoever we share it with, right? So there's a few things here. We have different pages, the same pages that we saw directly inside of Power BI Desktop, right? We see them right here. So the few things you can do here, again, this is straightforward, but I just wanted to show you how this works. I'm actually going to collapse the filters so we can get a better view of the page. And of course, we can see the different pages and the corresponding reports on each page, right? And I say report, that's because that's the way we categorize it at Microsoft. Some of you will call it a dashboard. And you can use those words interchangeably, but bear in mind that dashboards actually are created directly from Power BI services and not directly from Power BI desktop. It's just another way of saying that this is a page to display information, although with a dashboard, you can display multiple reports in one page. But with a report, you can display multiple pages. So dashboards cannot have more than one page, all right? So other options you can do here, of course, is you can pretty much download this whole entire Power BI file, right? You can do a save as a copy directly to the services. You can do a download the PBIX file. And once you download that, you'll work with that via Power BI desktop. You can print this page. And there's additional settings here, all right? So if I want to download the Power BI X file, I can click on that. Give it a couple of seconds. It'll export that file. Now, bear in mind when you do this, that's because I have the rights to do this, right? That's because I am a contributor, at least a contributor. And it's true that as an administrator, you do have the function ability to turn some of this functionality off, all right? This one seems like it's taking a couple of minutes, but I'm just going to keep going. That's usually much quicker than that. I guess I'm just having a little slowdown today. You also have the ability to export to a PowerPoint. I'm actually going to click on that right now as well. I'm going to be dangerous, and hopefully I don't get any more slowdowns. All right, that's downloading, so that's, I guess it did have a slow hiccup. So here I can exclude hidden reports and things of that nature. I'm just going to export everything, right? I'm not going to say only export current page. I'm just going to export everything.
And Jeffrey, while we're waiting for those to download, we did get another good question here. George had a question asking about what do you do if your data is updating, like the rows inside of the data set are updating, and how do you get that to update inside of the Power BI service?
Good question. I'll definitely go over that in a few minutes. Definitely good question.
All right, great, thanks.
No, you're welcome. So that one's exporting the PowerPoint as well. We have our HR PBIX file downloading, so we're going to let those download. And again, it usually takes usually much quicker than that, but I'll just let that continue. All right. We also can analyze in Excel. That does export to Excel. I'm not going to download that for the sake of time. But there are also other options here. You can share this report. Oh, wow, that's taking a long time, but it's okay. It's finished. You also have the ability to share the report, add comment, subscribe, and there's more options here. But for right now, I'm going to look at those files I just downloaded. Just going to click here. Look at my downloads. And then here's the file right here that I just downloaded for the PBIX file. And of course, here is the HR PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to open up the presentation first, all right? So any report that you put inside of Power BI services can be downloaded to PowerPoint. Bear in mind that this information is static. It has not refreshed. It does not refresh automatically. All right. In addition to that, just going to edit, click edit. In addition to that, it has a default page. It shows a refresh date, as we can see here. And of course, you cannot click on these and then visualization will change, but it is pretty much static, but you do get the last results. And this actually helps out when you're probably in a location where it does not have internet connection. And of course, sometimes some officers, of course, desire to have PowerPoint presentations. So this actually works as well if you want a snapshot in time. So this was every single page. All right. It even has the mobile page here as well. That PBIX file is basically the same thing as this. I'm not going to open up another one but here is the PBX file right here. All right. If I create an update and publish this again, and then you'll see that update automatically, but I'm not going to do that right now. But I just want to let you know how that works. All right. So how do you share a report? All right. Well, we're going to go over this in a couple of seconds. Before we go over this, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to go back to my workspace. And then you ask a couple of questions as far as how do you refresh your data set. So refreshing your data sets is based on, you can do that several ways. As a creator of a report, you have the ability to refresh your own data set. As an administrator, you have the ability to refresh anyone's data set. We're not going to go over that right now. That's more from an administrator class. But from a contributor of a Power BI report, if you own your Power BI report, you can go to your data set, if you will. And then, of course, you have the ability to refresh that data set right here, all right? There's other ways as well, but the best thing to do is just to click on this refresh now button, and then it will refresh that data set. Bear in mind that this data set should reside somewhere within the cloud. If it's this on your desktop, you're definitely going to need a Power BI gateway or a data gateway. But if it does exist, let's say in Azure, SQL, or somewhere else, such as SharePoint, it will refresh automatically. If it's inside of Excel on your desktop, you're going to receive an error stating that you definitely need to configure your gateway. But this is all you have to do is click here to refresh your data set. All right, so I'm going to go back to the report itself. So how do you share? All right, so you can share your report directly from here. You can also share back from the previous page. You can share your report here. All right, you can enter in the person name here. So it says Chef Smith. And then you can share the report itself. You can share that data set. Once you share that data set, they have the ability to use that data set that you have on side of Power BI services and create their own report based on that data set, all right? You can send them, of course, an email. You can include your changes. And here's a direct link. So I'm just going to share this. And that's pretty much it, all right? I'm going to go back to share report again. Click on access, and as you can see here, this is the owner, and this person can read and reshare, all right? You also have the ability to embed reports in SharePoint, websites, or even publish it to the web. Now, bear in mind, you all have Power BI Premium, so that does give you the ability to publish to the web. And sometimes if you click on embed to SharePoint, that may not work perfectly for you. There are some caveats to that. I'm not going to demo adding that to SharePoint, but I will tell you the caveats. And that is, one thing that you must do is allow Power BI services to display on your SharePoint site. All right. And also, sometimes that link does not work. The one that does work is this one. And that's because what you need is an iframe. All right. Tag inside of your page, right? Once you add this iframe tag inside your SharePoint page or website, and then that should work perfectly, especially if you allow the HTML security to display information inside of this site, all right? We can probably go over that at the end of the course if you want to see that, but I'm not going to go outside the Power BI. You can also add comments to your Power BI report, all right? You can add comments and start conversations right here. You can subscribe yourself or subscribe others to updates. I'm gonna click subscribe. I'm gonna add a new subscription. I'm also gonna add in here, not my personal email address, but this tenant email address. And then I'm going to say new hire report. All right. You can add different pages. New hire is perfect. And then just like Outlook, you can add a frequency. So this can be like a weekly report. I can send this out every Friday via email. And then this can be, of course, set here at a Pacific time. You can also include access to the report and then provide them a link and then save and done. All right. So every Friday they'll receive the email giving them an update on this report. Right. So a manager, sometime or a leader sometime does not always know where this report is at. They may want status updates every week. This does it for you. All right. Simple and straightforward. So the last thing I want to discuss before we transition off this report is favorites. I can add favorites right here. And once that, you can also remove the favorite if you want to by just clicking again. And then once I add it to favorites, it is available under favorites, right? So you can add as many favorites as you desire. All right. So we're going to transition off of that report and discuss a few more topics, and then I'll hand it over to Steve. So one thing that you can do is add another workspace. All right. So if I click on workspaces, you want to create another workspace right here. So I'm going to click create a workspace. I'm going to call this workspace let's call it Air Force. Keep it simple. Of course, you can put a organization inside Air Force. All right. Or a MAJCOM or anything like that. Or combatant command. I'm just going to click save. And then just pretty much that simple and straightforward. And we now have another workspace, and it's called Air Force. All right. And it's right here. No one has access to this. So, of course, you can grant them access right here. And then maybe you want to add a group. All right. So let's see if I can find a group name. Let's see, probably HR or something like that. I just add myself right now, so I'm not even thinking of any names. All right, on this tenant. So you can add them as a member. You can give them admin rights, contributor rights, and viewer rights. All right. And of course, you can add groups as well. I'm not thinking of any group on this tenant right now, but you can add groups here and not just users. There's more settings here, but again, that's more for the admin course. I'm going to go back to workspaces. If you don't add anything to a workspace, there's nothing displayed here, as you can see here. But this, of course, is a group workspace, and most likely the finance team can see this. All right. I'm going to go back to home. These are the content that I've been working with recently. This is the content that has been shared with me. And if I have any apps, it's displayed right here. I don't have any apps on this tenant. All right. So some of the things that you can do is link directly to the reports right here. So it does go directly to the report. I'm going to click back on my workspace and show you a few other options right here. And then I'll turn this right back over to Steve. All right. So there's other options here as well. It's really more for the administrator course, but you do have the ability to share directly from this page. We saw the refresh earlier. You have the ability to add as a favorite, the report as a favorite. And there's a lot of other options right here, such as analyzing Excel or it's exporting to Excel. You can save the copy. You can create a quick insight that was discussed in another Power BI workshop, and do a few other things as well. For the data set itself, you have the ability to manage role level security. You can manage permissions, and you can download the PBX file. You can rename it and do a lot of other things here as well. So there's more things you can do inside of here, but that's really more for the administrator course. So if there's not any more questions, I'm going to hand it back over to Steve. Let's see here. I'm going to share the slide real quick. Go back here so that, and then Steve will just guide me on whether to go push forward on that.
So yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. So first, I just want to talk to a couple of questions that we had in the chat. One of them was around how do you update data automatically? And so at a high level, there's a couple of different things you could do. Thanks, Jeffrey. We're getting a little bit echo there, so thanks for muting yourself. So with regards to data, there's a couple different ways you can connect to data. There is the import mode, which is, I'm going to pull data from a spreadsheet, for example, and periodically I'm going to refresh that data. When you publish it to the service, there is a way to set up what's called a scheduled refresh on your data. You could say, every night at 10 o'clock at night, I want to refresh my data from a spreadsheet that's in SharePoint so that users automatically see the latest data in the morning when they go to do that. You can also do that multiple times throughout the day. You're not just limited to doing that one time. There's other data sets that you could do what are called direct query. So if you're connecting to something that's in like SQL Server, you have the option to say that this report, when it renders, is going to go live against the database to get the data to render the report, meaning that you don't need to do refreshes of data because you're just going live against the data when users are going to the report itself, which is pretty cool. There's a third variation of kind of getting data to update. You can only do this in dashboards, but there is a notion of what's called a real-time data set. And that allows you to actually, instead of pulling data, I'm going to go to the data source and bring it back to the report to render it. It sets up what's called a push endpoint, where you can actually have data sources throw data to Power BI. When you do that, the dashboards will automatically refresh, and the users don't have to even like reload the page, which is pretty cool. So that's just a high level kind of 3 different options of how you can connect to your data. Jeffrey is actually showing the scheduled refresh option if this one were set up, but you could then set up a frequency. So you could say it was daily or weekly, or you could define different hours within the day of when you actually want to have the data update. So George, hopefully that better answers your question. Just want to summarize one other kind of thread that I had with Scott kind of back and forth. There is the comments feature that we talked about. That is not something that's specific to Teams. It's specific to the Power BI service. And it just allows you to chat about the report, chat about the data, chat about the insights that you're seeing on a report. You can mention people so that you can get their attention so that they could know to go to that report and kind of see what other people are talking about. You can have threads inside of that. And Scott had a great question. Can you make comments only available to certain people? My understanding is if you have access to this report, whether you're a viewer, a member, or like an admin on this report, you will see the chat regardless. So I don't think there's a way to kind of isolate that. If you want it to do something like that, probably better to do like a one-on-one Teams chat or something like that with somebody specific to that, where it's not going to be something that maybe is shared with everybody else that's looking at that report. But I think that kind of covers a lot of things we were chatting about. I just want to touch base with those really quickly. Jeffrey, let's go back to the slides real quick. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so just one thing we want to touch on now, this topic of premium and the way that premium works could be its own session. And we just want to just at a high level, make you all aware of what this is. Now with Power BI, there's 2 fundamental ways you can license Power BI. One is per user, which is something called Power BI Pro. And in that model, people need the Pro license to both publish reports and also consume reports. Now, there's also this other model, which is premium. And premium means that instead of licensing per user to consume reports, you're going to buy a set amount of capacity that you're hosting these reports in. Now, with that model, people that are publishing reports still need a Power BI Pro per user license, but the people that you're sharing it with, so anybody at Air Force, can view those without a license because it's covered through the premium capacity. Now, at Air Force today, you own 3 Power BI Premium P1 nodes and also around like 2,000 Power BI Pro licenses. And what I wanted to just touch on here was this was Microsoft's recommendation of how kind of moving forward the Air Force could work with the premium licensing model. And now, we've also had conversations with Jason Miller and crew about this as well. But this is just kind of a high level of what we were kind of thinking, not what's implemented today, but we just kind of wanted to throw out what Microsoft is kind of recommending here. Now, when it comes to the hierarchy of premium, the very highest level are nodes. So when Power BI Premium is purchased, for example, Air Force already has 3 P1 nodes. From there, those individual nodes can be broken out into capacity. And capacity are these things that are dedicated resources, and they don't affect other capacities. So for example, if AFMC wanted their own dedicated capacity, they could put reports in there, and people rendering those reports do not affect the performance of other capacities inside of Air Force. So that's kind of just an important thing to kind of keep in mind with premium. And Jeffrey already kind of touched on workspaces, but workspaces can very easily be assigned to premium capacity, and you can move them throughout different premium capacities as well. It's really easy to do that inside of Power BI. Let's go to the next slide, Jeffrey. And just from a security perspective, these are just a couple of different roles to kind of keep in mind here. There is a Power BI admin. This is like a tenant level admin. This would be anybody that has the Power BI admin at Air Force can manage all of the Air Force operations inside of the Power BI service. So you can almost think of this as like a global admin, but it's specific to the Power BI service. There's also something called capacity admin. So when the capacities get provisioned, and I'm going to keep picking on AFMC here, but if AFMC were to get their own capacity created, the global admin can assign who would the capacity admins be for that particular MAGCOM, at which point that MAGCOM can create workspaces and assign them to their own capacity without the need of the Power BI admin to be able to do that on their behalf. And then inside of workspaces, there's a bunch of different permissions, and we touched on some of those already. But I just wanted to give you just a high level of how these different roles work inside of the Power BI service specific to Air Force. And we'll go to the next slide here. And this slide here is just a quick visual of just another way to look at Power BI Premium. And so on the far left are the nodes that we're talking about. So at Air Force today, you all have 3 Power BI Premium P1 nodes, and you can decide how you want to carve out the capacities inside of there. So when we move to that kind of middle yellow section, I am just throwing this out there that maybe AFMC, PACAF, ACC, and then I also said maybe the capacity for ACC wasn't enough, and for like just senior level leadership or for executives, ACC executives had their own capacity. And I just wanted to kind of show that you can break these things out however you want to. You can control them how you would want to as well, meaning the MAGCOMs could have total control over their capacities, and they could also have control over their workspaces. And by MAGCOMs, in this case, having access and administrative capabilities to their capacities, they don't inherit the rights to, for example, manage other capacities. So for example, if we're looking at ACC, a capacity admin for ACC does not have the ability to make changes to PACAF or AFMC. So there's kind of this nice kind of governance model built into Power BI Premium. I think, Jeffrey, that might have been the last slide. Let's go one more slide here. Oh, cool. Okay. So this slide here is just showing you, on the left, we talked about Power BI admin as a global admin for the Power BI service. And I'm just taking a screenshot of what you would see from the Power BI portal for the admin portal. And you can see that the Power BI admin sees tons of different options here in the admin portal. Whereas on the right, a capacity admin, they only see the capacity settings, and they only see the capacities that they have access to. So this just kind of shows you kind of a visual of what it looks like from a security perspective. Okay, and we got a question here from Jason: certification requirements for the different roles, capacity admin, workspace admin, etc. So that's a good question there. So from a governance perspective, you could decide how you want to do that, but the most permissive role would be Power BI admin, which should be very few at Air Force. From there, then you can decide who should have capacity admin rights, and those would be people really that tend to do kind of a lot of those operational things, like, for example, creating Teams groups or creating SharePoint sites. It would be the same kind of group of people probably. But I was just throwing out there that you could make it specific to the MAGCOMs if you wanted to, where each MAGCOM could manage that totally on their own. at which point then they could assign workspaces and workspace admins inside of their own capacity there. And Jeffrey, we'll go to the next slide here. And this was also, we meant this slide to be kind of as a lead behind too, so you're welcome to go back to it as well. These were Microsoft's recommended kind of governance specific to Air Force. And so with kind of what we've talked about, obviously this will be fleshed out through Jason Miller's team as well. But this was just kind of what we were just throwing out there. And this is what some other agencies have done previously with Power BI as well. So at the highest level, or the first action would be getting the Power BI premium licenses. So for example, Air Force already has 3 Power BI Premium P1 nodes, so that part is already done. The next thing would be to then start creating capacities from those nodes that are already purchased. And you can divvy those out however you'd like to. You just have to decide who are going to be the capacity admins and who are going to administer those specific workloads. And then from there, then the MatchComs or whoever is managing these capacities can then create workspaces, assign permissions, and also periodically kind of monitor the health of the capacity, meaning, are we doing so many reports in this capacity that maybe we need to consider maybe getting additional capacity for our reports? Now, I know that was we kind of went pretty deep there. We could spend a whole conversation on that. If you guys have questions, please feel free to reach out to Jeffrey or myself afterwards, and we're happy to do that. We're also happy to do a much more deep dive conversation around premium as well. And I'm going to look in the chat here. There's a couple other questions here. What type of license is needed to use Power BI services? So that's a good question. Let me just try to kind of clarify that. So anybody can go to the Power BI service at Air Force, no license. Now, the thing that you need a license for is when you're going to publish reports that are going to be shared with other people. That is a licensable event, meaning you need a Power BI Pro license to publish the report. Inside of the Power BI service, there is a My Workspace, which is kind of like a sandbox for every single user. And anybody at Air Force could publish to their My Workspace and just play around with the Power BI service. But if you wanted to then take that report and share that with somebody else, that would be a scenario where you need a Power BI Pro license, at least to do that. The person receiving that report would also need a Power BI Pro license. Now, the trick here is that if you're also using Premium, which you are at Air Force, if your reports are hosted in premium capacity, the people that are viewing or consuming those reports do not need a Power BI Pro license. It would just be the report authors in that scenario. So let's say that you have a team of 5 report authors, but you're publishing to one of your Power BI premium capacities. 5 people would need a Power BI Pro license. The rest of the people consuming those reports, maybe it's 10,000 people, would be covered by the Power BI premium capacity in that scenario. And once again, Air Force today has 3 Power BI Premium P1 nodes. So hopefully that helps answer your question around licensing. And then I see, let me see, there's one other question here. When will Power BI be standard on Air Force systems along with other Microsoft suites? There is, I know that it's going through the security review process for Power BI Desktop. I don't have insight into where that's at, but I know that that's kind of in the process right now. And with that, I will pass it back over to Jeffrey. Thank you guys for the questions too. Really appreciate that. And feel free also, you can always reach out to us afterwards as well. Yeah, Jeffrey, I'll pass it back over to you. And you are muted in case you're trying to talk now.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Definitely, as Steve was saying, feel free to reach out to us at any given time. You'll see our email addresses are in the invites, and also I'll share them again at the end of this session. This session is recorded, so feel free to jump back in at any given time and look at that recording. We can pretty much we stop the recording at any time. We will be offering this session again, but there are definitely a lot of future workshops in the make. Those are pertain to Power BI integration, whether it's with the Power Platform or anything else, such as SharePoint, administration courses, security courses, paginated report workshops, data gateway. As Steve was saying, premium capacity can be its own separate workshop as well. And one thing that I'm, pretty keen on is how to build a battle rhythm dashboard. I came from CENTCOM before Microsoft, and one thing that we had was a battle rhythm, or just a good gauge on who was doing what at any given time, whether it's at division level, department level, or the command level. So those are some ideas that we had, and what to present to you. We had a couple of takes on what you all decided and what you wanted. This one was the first course that you are requested. At any given time, feel free to provide feedback to us, and we'll be happy to tailor a course directly to your needs as well. So we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming. By all means, at any given time, feel free to contact Steve or myself, and we'll be happy to assist you in any of your needs. Thank you and have a great day.